Hey folks, this is Riker with a gaming news wrap-up video where we discuss the happenings of the week. This week's topics include Blizzard and NetEase officially breaking up, the next chapter that has already emerged in the drama between Doom's developer and composer Mick Gordon, Diablo 4's approach to open-world design, and more. As always, discussion timestamps can be found in the description below, but right before you skip ahead, just a quick reminder to ring that sub notification bell to be alerted to new Saturday episodes and stay up to date with gaming news highlights. Now before we move on, just a quick word from this video's sponsor, Raycon, providers of premium wireless audio, earbuds, headphones, and speakers. When I'm out of the office, I'm almost always wireless. I do a lot of cooking and I like to watch Netflix or YouTube while I'm in the kitchen, but I can't hear the TV over the sound of the oven fan or the faucet. So I pop in my pair of Raycon everyday earbuds, and now I can hear everything in great audio quality no matter what's going on. And with the holiday season approaching, Raycons make a great gift for anyone that likes to stay connected while away from their computer, be it listening to music, podcasts, or hanging out on voice chat. And Raycons makes gifting easy with gift guides for everyone in your life. For instance, you can get the gaming bundle, which includes gaming earbuds and gaming headphones. And Raycons are sleek and stylish. No white stems hanging out of your ears. They come in a range of colors to match anyone's style and have an almost custom, comfortable fit. Raycons have up to a 54-hour battery life, and maybe the best of all, they start at half the price of other premium audio brands. Also, the Raycon website offers a buy now, pay later option. You can find Raycons in stores now, like Kohl's or Walmart, but you'll always get the best deal when you use my special link in the description below. Or go to buyraycon.com/Riker and use code EARLYBF to get 20% off site-wide. Or save even more and get 30% off Raycon's exclusive holiday bundles. More deals will come throughout the season, and I'll try to keep the description box updated with the latest offers. But just so you know, you can always go to buyraycon.com/Riker to get the best deals available on Raycon. Alright, let's start with a lightning round of fast news, starting with World of Warcraft. We got this week the Dragonflight launch cinematic. Do give that a look if you haven't seen it yet. It doesn't say much from a story perspective, but serves its purpose as a hype trailer for the expansion. As a reminder, Dragonflight releases on November 28th. In some other quick news, early reviews are coming in for NVIDIA's new RTX 4080 graphics card. And yeah, pretty much what we expect from NVIDIA at this point. Good performance at a bad price. Seems most people will be better off just getting a used 3080 or 3090. In some Witcher 3 news, the next gen update releases December 14th, and will be free for everyone who already owns the game. CD Projekt Red will reveal more details next week on their stream. I'm expecting ray tracing. In some Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy news, it's been revealed that the game has had over 8 million players in its first year. That's great news for a great game that was cast in the awful shadow of Marvel's Avengers. But it should be noted that 8 million players does not mean 8 million sales, since the game was available on Game Pass at some point. Still, a nice milestone though. In other news, Pentiment released and is getting good reviews. On OpenCritic, it holds a score of 86 out of 100, with 88% of critics recommending it. Pentiment is a narrative adventure RPG by Obsidian Entertainment, set in 16th century Bavaria, in which you're investigating a murder. It's certainly an off-the-wall game, and Microsoft owns Obsidian, so it's great to see Microsoft supporting more than just projects destined to be giant AAA smash hits. Once again, ever more hope that we'll see StarCraft 3 and Warcraft 4 once Microsoft finishes acquiring Activision Blizzard. Not that those would be small off-the-wall games, but RTS is not a super popular genre. In other news, we have a follow-up on a story we covered this summer, which suggested that the relationship between Blizzard and its Chinese partner NetEase was on the rocks. The update? They've officially broken up. For 14 years, NetEase has been Blizzard's partner, publishing its games in China. But because the two companies have been unable to reach a new contract agreement, well, the current contract will expire on January 23rd, 2023, and after that, most of Blizzard's online games will no longer be playable in China. This includes World of Warcraft, Hearthstone, Warcraft 3 Reforged, Overwatch 2, all StarCraft games, Diablo 3, and Heroes of the Storm. Now, Diablo Immortal is published under a separate long-term agreement, so this one is unaffected. This one will continue to be operating in China. Now, in the meantime, Blizzard is looking into alternative ways to bring its games to Chinese players, but doesn't have any concrete plans to announce for now. You see, China doesn't allow foreign game developers to publish games in China without a Chinese partner. Prior to teaming up with NetEase, Blizzard published its games in China through a distributor called The Nine. But China tightly regulates its gaming market, and in the past couple of years has really crack down and put tighter restrictions on foreign developers. There are waiting lists that can be months and even years now. So who knows how long it could take for Blizzard's games to become playable in China again. Now you may ask, why couldn't Blizzard and NetEase reach a deal? Well, neither company is likely to throw the other under the bus, but in a press release, Blizzard did write, quote, "The two parties have not reached a deal to renew the agreements that is consistent with Blizzard's operating principles and commitments to players and employees." Following this, NetEase said, quote, "We have put in a great deal of effort and tried with our utmost sincerity to negotiate with Activision Blizzard so that we could continue our collaboration and serve the many dedicated players in China. However, there were material differences on key terms and we could not reach an agreement." Whatever that means is anyone's guess, but NetEase share prices closed 9% lower in Hong Kong after the announcement. However, NetEase claims that they will not be impacted in a significant way by any of this, that Blizzard's games contributed a low single-digit percentage of its total net revenue and net income in 2021 and 2022. China is the world's largest gaming market, and as a reminder, NetEase is the second biggest gaming company in China after Tencent. I wonder if Blizzard's going to go to Tencent now, actually. Activision already works with Tencent for Call of Duty Mobile, so it makes sense. Meanwhile, in Overwatch 2, Blizzard has gone to war against cheaters, or right to the source, the cheat manufacturers. One of the major Overwatch 2 cheat sellers shut down after receiving a cease and desist legal threat from Blizzard. Blizzard also revealed this week that the next hero coming to Overwatch 2, after the tank Ramattra, will be a stronger support hero, and it's not expected before the game's 4th season, likely in April 2023. Then, in a follow-up to last week's ongoing story about Mick Gordon versus id Software, in the case of who screwed who over Doom Eternal soundtrack, Bethesda, the publisher, has now stepped in to issue a statement in defense of id Software. Now, this came after Mick Gordon laid out an absolute legal thesis detailing his side of the story, posting publicly for all to see in an effort to undo the reputation damage that the scandal has done to him over the years. Bethesda's response, posted to Twitter, reads, "The recent post by Mick Gordon both mischaracterized and misrepresented the team at id Software, the development of Doom Eternal, Marty Stratton, and Chad Mossholder, with a one-sided and unjust account of an irreparable professional relationship. We are aware of all the details and history in this matter and unequivocally support Marty, Chad, and the team at id Software. We reject the distortion of the truth and selective presentation of incomplete facts. We stand ready with full and complete documented evidence to disclose in an appropriate venue as needed." The statements posted online have incited harassment and threats of violence against Marty, Chad, and the id Software team. Any threats or harassment directed towards members of our teams will be met with swift and appropriate action to protect their health and safety. We remain incredibly proud of id's previous collaborations with Mick Gordon and ask that fans refrain from reaching conclusions based on his account and, more importantly, from attacking any of the individuals mentioned on either side, including Marty, Chad, or Mick. This is a very strong rebuttal with no evidence to show for it. It's easy to side with Mick Gordon here, who lays out all of his alleged evidence, but I think what this boils down to is that Bethesda is not trying to win in the court of public opinion. It's keeping its evidence for when this inevitably goes to trial, so that Mick's legal team can't prepare a strategy in advance for whatever evidence Bethesda brings forth. As a recap on the situation, if you haven't been following, Doom Eternal released in 2020, and the soundtrack was delayed at first, and then when it was released, fans found it was of subpar quality and were upset. Mick Gordon publicly denounced the soundtrack, saying that he didn't make most of it. Then the developer id blamed Mick Gordon for generally being terrible, just horrible to work with. Then we didn't hear anything for a while. Everyone sided with id. Then 2 years later, just last week, Mick Gordon came out with a statement defending himself, and he clearly had the help of a lawyer come up with this massive statement. At this point, it'll likely be a while before we hear anything else. According to Mick, he had already turned down a 6-figure settlement agreement that was offered him to stay quiet on the matter because he felt that the truth and his reputation was more important. So I do expect this to go to court. And while I'm not going to take sides here, I will note that Bethesda's statement, while a very strong statement, seems to completely ignore the fact that Marty Stratton 2 years ago posted his own diatribe that presented a one-sided and arguably unjust account of what happened. So I feel this framing is a little dishonest given it's basically Mick defending himself against what Marty Stratton said of him. But moving on. Onto some Path of Exile news. The devs released their manifesto on patch 3.20, and it's relatively short and sweet. To summarize, they're replacing Arch Nemesis with a simplified system that is closer to how monsters worked in the past. So going forward, mods on monsters will only do one specific thing rather than a number of different things. The mods' names will clearly state what the mod does rather than be a thematic kind of name that players must memorize. There's going to be fewer very complex fights with lots of mods overlapping on each other and making things very confusing for players or potentially confusing for players. And players will not be incentivized to engage in unfun behavior in order to maximize their rewards, like bringing in a magic find culling character. Overall, this is being received very well by the community. The devs have basically thrown out a ton of time and effort they put into Arch Nemesis over a very long time, and they're doing this to bring things back to a direction that players are happier with. Meanwhile, the details of the 3.20 expansion will be revealed on December 1st, with the expansion launching on December 9th. In other news, the Game Awards 2022 Game of the Year nominees have been announced, and our contenders are A Plague Tale Requiem, Elden Ring, God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, Stray, and Xenoblade Chronicles 3. By the way, God of War Ragnarok wound up being the second biggest box game launch of the year, behind FIFA 23. Ugh. This is also the biggest launch in the God of War franchise's history. We also learned this week that Elden Ring sold 17.5 million units, making it the fastest selling multi-platform Japanese game of all time. The Game Awards have also posted their nominees for a host of other categories. You can check that all out on thegameawards.com. As a reminder, these take place on December 8th, and we're expecting to get a Diablo 4 pre-order reveal during the show, possibly with a release date reveal as well. Speaking of Diablo 4 and some other Diablo 4 news, IGN uploaded last week what appears to be the final video in their interview series. This one is about Diablo 4's open world. Game director Joe Shelley talks about finding a balance between having a world that shows you a bunch of cool things that you can do without it feeling like a giant task list of things you need to do. Diablo boss Rod Ferguson explained that they're aiming for a different experience to Breath of the Wild's open world, which is completely organic, where you can go anywhere and do everything. In Diablo 4, there is still a story, and while that story allows for a non-linearity, there's still a beginning, a middle, and an end. They want you to start at a certain place and end at a certain place. He describes it as a branching story in which you decide the order in which you complete the different branches. He spoke, for instance, about being able to do Act 3 before Act 2, and how on a subsequent playthrough you can shake up that order. Basically, you have paths that branch out and then reconvene. You can even spend a lot of time just ignoring the story and doing side quests. As for how empty or full of monsters the game's world's going to be, the density, well, the team describes it as every inch is built for combat. In other words, the monster density is such that pretty much anywhere that you decide to stop, you'll find monsters to fight. They also spoke about something called a renown system, which seems like a checklist of things to do in a zone, such that you'll know once you've completed everything in a zone, and then you'll even get some kind of bonus for doing so. An example was given of getting 6 skill points, so that if you start an alt character, that character automatically starts with 6 skill points. So from that, we know that the progression towards this renown system is shared between all your characters. They finalized by saying that while you can be going off and doing all these side activities, the campaign is always a place you know you can go back to, so you never have to be lost or wonder what to do next. And to wrap up our Diablo news, I posted episode 14 of my Diablo lore series yesterday. This one talks about what happened between Diablo 1 and Diablo 2, plus lays out the history of the Amazons and the Rogues. Since Rogues are a playable class in Diablo 4, you might want to bone up on your lore before release. And that's going to wrap up this week's video. But do be sure to have checked out last week's video, in which we discussed how the community is split on how to handle respecs in Diablo 4. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my Twitch, Patreon, and YouTube supporters for making these videos possible. As a reminder, we're doing our annual Patreon banner drive. If you want to get your name on the poster behind me right there, that's the Raider banner. It'll be available in the shop as well. You gotta be a Patreon supporter by December 1st. Even at the $1 tier, that'll get your name on the banner. If you like what you see on this channel and want to support the creation of more content, you can consider pledging on YouTube or Patreon and unlocking behind-the-scenes content, monthly virtual hangouts, and more. If you enjoyed this video, please share it. Check out these other videos, and subscribe to join Riker's Raiders for more gaming content.